President Muhammadu Buhari has assented to the Medical Residency Training Act 2018 and the Hydroelectric Power Producing Area Development Commission Amendment Act 2018. Briefing stayed as correspondent after the president's assent at the Aso Rock Presidential Villa, Abuja. Senior Special Assistant to the President on National Assembly Matters, Senate, Senator Itai Nang said these bills that have become acts are meant for the smooth running of the institutions involved.
Excellency, Mr. President has assented to the Medical Residency Training Act 2018. This act is directed at ensuring continuous and postgraduate training of medical doctors, and it is intended again to assure the quality of medical practice in the country and also improve the standard of medical practitioners, and of course to reverse medical tourism so that people will now be coming into the country. The program, according to the Act, will be managed by the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria, and it is for those who have graduated, had their first degree in medicine and surgery or surgery, and have finished their NYSC and possess insurance, indemnity insurance certificate from reputable insurance companies. The other act Mr. President has assented to is the Hydroelectric Power Producing Areas Development Commission Amendment Act. This act did provide in Section 8, subsection 2, that 30% of the revenue derived by the companies or authorities producing hydropower in the dams and so on will go to the commission for the purpose of the commission. But the amendment assented to has reduced that 30% to now 10%. It has also provided that because the previous act did not give discretion and powers to the minister to give directives, and it did not recognize the powers of the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, to regulate its activities. This amendment has cured that, and the minister is given powers to make regulations and give directives, and NERC, National Electricity Power Regulatory Commission, is also given its powers to regulate this area in accordance with the Principal Act.
The amendment eliminates ambiguity in the law and role conflict of the responsible institutions, as well as properly providing for the exercise of statutory powers. From Abuja, I am Festus Ejirog Enefifen for Ben Television.
Former Minister of Aviation, Ambassador Kema Chikwe, has come up with an institute that will help women to overcome contemporary challenges of leadership occasioned by discrimination. At the public launch of the institute in Abuja, Ambassador Kema said her political exposure at various stages of her life gave birth to the Women Leadership Institute.
My tenure as the National Woman Leader of the People's Democratic Party, during which I consistently attended the CSW at the United Nations in New York, attended conferences in Gambia, South Africa, and some other countries, and also attended a diploma course for African women leaders in China in 2012, exposed me to experiences that I believe should be harnessed and shared to the benefit of other women, especially the upcoming leaders. The outcome of these experiences and exposure are the establishment of the Women Leadership Institute. Some women have been able to break barriers in leadership without passing through formal institutions, But these institutions are necessary because they create standards and form organized framework for achieving greater impact.
She explained that Women Leadership Institute had designed a curriculum that will prepare women for leadership status.
The WLI has designed a curriculum that prepares women for leadership in 3 categories, recognizing the quote of Chimamanda Adichie, who said that the problem with gender is it prescribes how we should be rather than recognizing who we are.
Speaking on the mandate of the institute, the event moderator, Anthony Ubani, said the institute will provide framework for Nigerian and African women to succeed as leaders.
WLI is an international leadership development organization that is primarily focused on providing a professional and non-partisan platform for women in Nigeria and across Africa to enhance their leadership capacity and to take on constructive roles in the political and economic development of Nigeria and Africa in general.
While reacting to this 168th position of Nigeria in Parliament Global Index of Women Development, Eugenia Abu said a lot needs to be done for women to have a political voice.
So at 168 is a bit of an embarrassment, really, to be honest. If you look at Rwanda today, after the war, after the genocide in Rwanda, a lot of Rwandan women are holding cabinet positions. Rwanda ranks higher than most countries on the continent. And yet Nigeria has been around for a very long time and therefore should lead the way. So at 168, I think all kinds of structures and all kinds of efforts should be done to improve that figure. We don't look very good in the Committee of Nations. We can do better.
Also, Ambassador Kema Chikwe said there's hope for Nigerian women following the Rwanda milestone.
I agree that it's a global record. It's not a Nigerian thing. It's not women's thing. No, it's the assessment, the global assessment. So it is 168 position, while Rwanda is first, above Western countries. So it gives me a lot of hope. Because Rwanda is an African country. South Africa is there. I think Malawi, I think Senegal, they're all there, and they're African countries. If they can do it, why not Nigeria? But what Nigeria needs now is to develop its leadership capacity for women. And you know, when women take charge, things change.
A consultant to the institute, Kamdi McEnnes, said the Women Leadership Institute will breed new women leaders.
And I feel that this is a platform where it can breed new women leaders, and more importantly, give an opportunity to those women who are leaders, who are in hiding, to finally come out and show themselves, and to be educated more on getting to that goal.
The highlight of the event include panel discussion, official unveiling of the institute logo. In Abuja, Nigeria, Muyiwa Bamdele reporting.
The monthly meeting of the Federation Account Allocation Committee, FAC, ended in a deadlock in Abuja. This is the third time this year the meeting of FAC is inconclusive over what might not be unconnected with the failure of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, to remit appropriate revenue into the Federation account. In March this year, members of FAC had gathered to disburse revenue that had accrued to the account for the month of February, but ended in installment due to a shortfall of 37.7 billion naira in NNPC remittances for that month. Similar situation also played out in February, several hours after members of FAC, including various state commissioners for finance, Accountant General and other top officials of the Federal Ministry of Finance entered a closed plenary session. They emerged from the meeting wearing long faces indicating that all was not well. However, the Director of Information, Ministry of Finance, Hassan Dudu, who told journalists the meeting had been postponed, also declined to provide any reason for the postponement. Chairman Forum of Finance Commissioners of FARC, Mahmoud Yunusa, who declined to be interviewed, said in passing that members will go back to confer with the state governors. In March this year, FARC experienced a stalemate over allegation that NNPC withheld a portion of Federation Fund. It took the intervention of Kemi Adelson, the Finance Minister, to reach out to the governors to direct their respective commissioners for finance to accept February revenue.
The National Economic Council has queried some of the costs posted by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC) for the month of May, which led to state finance commissioners walking out of the Federation Accounts Allocation Committee meeting in Abuja on Wednesday. Explaining the position of the federal government and the state governors while feeding questions from State House correspondents after the National Economic Council meeting in Abuja, Minister of Finance Kemi Adeosun said there is need to have a relook at the cost posted by NNPC.
NNPC, we operate NNPC, it's a business. We operate it as a business. We have invested public capital in that business and we have an expectation of a return. And when that return falls lower than our expectations, then the owners of the business, which in this case is the federal government and the states, need to act. So that's really what caused the deadlock yesterday, where we really felt that the figures that NNPC was proposing for FAC were unacceptable. We felt that the costs, some of the costs couldn't be justified, and so we have decided, rather than approve the accounts, we would go back and do further work. So further negotiation and interaction is going on with NNPC as we speak. However, we did brief both Mr. President and the Vice President on the deadlock and asked for their support and their forbearance in this period, because the consequences of this is that salaries might well be delayed in many states as a result of this. But we feel that in order to get to the accurate figures that we need, we've asked for forbearance, and the governors and indeed federal government are all in agreement that we need to get to the bottom of those figures. In particular, now that the oil price is around $76 in the spot market, which means that Bonny Light is about 78, we want to be aggressively putting money away into the excess crude account. So we're very, very conscious of the fact that this period or this window of a relatively high oil price may not last, and we'd like to be able to save. If we cannot get into the Federation account the sorts of revenues that we're expecting, then we will not be able to save. So it was a very, very important part that was really underscored by all the governors, that they really want action taken and are fully in support of the position of the Ministry of Finance and the Commissioners of Finance not to approve those accounts until we get further explanations on some of the costs that are being presented.
Delta State Governor Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa gave updates on the Nigerian Sovereign Wealth Investment Authority (NSIA) from 2016 till date.
The 2017 activities of the NSIA also include the implementation of the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative, the PFI, in 2017. They commenced the construction of 3 health projects in Lagos, Kano, and Umuahia. Umuahia is in Ebonyi State. They did continue the work, the funding of the work in the second Niger Bridge that they've been involved in the past too. They also did invest and own 13% of Bridge International Academics Limited, a network of schools which delivers affordable, high-quality primary education to lower-income families. And it is hoped that they will upscale that to some other states of the Federation. They also did invest in Babagona an agricultural franchise that empowers smallholder farmers across the country. And in 2018, they intend to focus on executing infrastructure investments across the nation, which include roads that will be tolled, investments in agriculture and health. And we're hoping that all this will impact on infrastructure development and development of industrial real estate in the country.
The National Economic Council also approved a request by the Ministry of Communication Technology for a proper addressing system in the country, as made known by the Deputy Governor of Kano State, Professor Hafiz Abubakar.
The request today was for Council to consider and approve the proposed National Addressing Data Ecosystem Architecture for the implementation of the National Addressing System, as well as to consider and accord high priority status for the implementation of the National Addressing System program, and also support the full implementation of the National Addressing System program with adequate funds. These were the three prayers put by the Honorable Minister of Communications, and Council so considered and approved the request as well as the sample of the organizing address format.
The National Economic Council, chaired by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, comprises of state governors, finance ministry, and other relevant stakeholders from the ASU Presidential Villa, Abuja, and Festus Ejirog Efife for Ben Television.
The Nigerian Governor Forum met in Abuja behind a closed door to discuss the issue of minimum wage, insecurity, and other matters of interest for the development of the country. 56,000 minimum wage, while the Nigerian Labour Congress is proposing a minimum wage of 65,000 naira for workers. The governor has been insisting on the staggering of the implementation of the new wage if approved. Also at the meeting agenda was the discussion on the issue of insecurity, especially the killings in Jos. The governor were also expected to meet with the Postmaster General of Nigerian Postal Service and the Attorney General from 36 states of the Federation on the contentious issue of stamp duty. Part of the agenda was to discuss the face-off between the executive and legislative arm of government. Meanwhile, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation expected to make presentation on the actual oil revenue generation and remittance from the corporation. Nigerian Communication Commission (NCC) was also expected to make presentation to the governors.
In response to a recent report released by the Brookings Institution that indicates that Nigeria has overtaken India in poverty ratings as the poorest nation in the world, the federal government has responded saying that the research might have been conducted when Nigeria was in recession, and also querying the parameters used for the research. Speaking after the weekly Federal Executive Council meeting in Abuja, Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment Okechukwu Enalema said Nigerians should not panic with such reports.
These reports, that there are reports that are lagging indicators, which means that people are reporting on history. There are reports that are leading indicators, which means that forward-looking. And of course, there are reports that generally capture like what you do, which is current, which is why the fourth estate is so important, because you're actually dealing with information that is current. So when you get reports from Brookings Institute, all these sort of people, you need to look at the context. I mean, somebody may have written a report when we're in recession. Remember that if you're in recession, what it means is that even though your population is growing, people don't stop procreating because there's recession. Your growth is flat, which means that in theory, depending on how they run those numbers, you'll be going the other way. There is absolutely no question that there is an urgency to create employment in Nigeria, and it has to be a collective responsibility. What I can tell you with certainty, based on one's background in business and in economics, is that if you complete the things we're doing on infrastructure and you implement these reports we're doing, that's what I mean by a leading indicator. Poverty will go down. There's no magic to it. But you have to do it first. You have to put in the infrastructure. You have to implement the economic program, which is what will create the opportunities. They don't drop from the sky. So I think we should roll up our sleeves as a people and do the work. Because if we don't do it, and our people continue to bear children, obviously they'll get poorer. So I don't think we should kid ourselves that poverty is something that just happens. I think it comes out of the need, the urgent need we have as a country, which is why we are focusing it as a government to make sure that we create the enabling environment, the infrastructure, and the things that are required to create opportunities for our people.
Speaking on free trade zones in the 6 geopolitical zones of the country, Enalem has said about 3.172 billion naira is also being invested in these free trade zones across the country for the provision of infrastructure that will enable ease of doing business nationwide.
That sought the Council's approval for the effective implementation of Project Made in Nigeria for Export, something called Project Mine initiative, which is aimed at developing world-class export-oriented special economic zones across the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria. And that memo was approved. That memo is anchored on creating the right enabling environment for special economic zones across the country. If you study other countries that have industrialized rapidly, you'll find that one of the things they did right was to have these special economic zones and industrial parks that are world-class, which means that all the infrastructure is there and all the requirements are in place. And the plan is to begin the development of those special economic zones across the 6 geopolitical zones as follows. We're going to do one in the Lagos State Lekki Free Trade Zone area, one in Katsina in Funtua Cotton Cluster Zone area, and another one in Abia in Enyimba City. We're also going to develop to world-class standards the existing 2 zones that the government has in Calabar and Kano. And then in addition, the council also approved pre-development work to start and development of greenfield special economic zones in Akwa Ibom, in Benue, in Ebonyi, in Edo, in Gombe, in Kwara, and in Sokoto states, with a further rollout to other locations in phase 2.
Council also approved 133 million naira for the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board to acquire computerized-based test center infrastructure to avert leakages in the conduct of its examinations across the country. From Abuja, I am Festus Ejiroge Nefifen for Ben Television.